Good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to dsnm HQ in the south of England, UK, the sunny south of England, UK, actually, which is a bit of a surprise. Welcome to one and all. My name is Lage-Seijo. I'm a yacht manager here with dsnm, and sitting next to me is
Stuart, I'm the Digital Development Manager at dsnm.
Perfect. We're here today. Glad that you could all make it. We're going to be talking about our amazing Compass software, just providing a general overview, just to showcase the new features, the key aspects that we've been working on with regards to the software and that application. Just as an aside, if there are any questions at any stage during the webinar, please feel free to write them into the chat tool, and we'll try and find a point that we can answer them if there is an appropriate time to do that. Otherwise, I'll attempt to answer them during the chat in the chat tool. Other than that, we'll aim to round up all the questions at the end of the webinar.
Perfect. Thank you, Ollie. So yeah, I'll start by, I guess, giving a very, very short kind of overview of where Compass has come from and kind of where we're kind of aiming towards. So very brief history. Compass began life or was released in 2018 to our clients at the time. At the time, it was developed mainly as a chart correction holding management tool. And it was, like I say, mainly aimed at delivering those services to crews on board, replacing a previous system that we used for our fleet at the time. Fast forward to 2025, and with the long term of paper charting uncertain, the Compass team, with the help of many of our long-standing yacht crews, have refocused efforts on really enhancing the planning and weather features available within Compass to further develop Compass into a really one-of-a-kind application focused on the needs of our super yacht bridge teams. It's worth mentioning at this point as well that as a dsnm client, if you're an existing dsnm client, you'll have full access to Compass, what we're about to see in a moment, included as part of your dsnm service. So if you haven't used it and seen some of the features, then I'm sure this will be really, really helpful to cover off those questions. Who has it been designed for, and how can it save you time on board? So like I said, it's been designed for all members of a vessel's bridge team. The navigational bridge team covers holdings management, so we'll go into it in more detail in a second. Paper chart correcting, but it also now creates weather reports for just positions and routes, and generally just aids the general passage planning and planning processes for bridge teams. It helps bridge team collaboration, and again, like we'll see, and the way it's been set up, it really enables kind of flexible access, and that brings me on to my next bit, kind of where it can be used. And Compass has been fundamentally designed with simplicity and accessibility in mind. It's a web-based application, so there's not a huge amount of restriction as to where it can be accessed from or what device it can be accessed from. So laptops, desktops, even touchscreen devices, iPads, or larger bridge planning stations. It works with the whole lot. And like I say, it's where we've kind of tried to maintain that flexibility. It's not restricted to a single device or two devices, let's say, on board. You can use it whether you're on board the vessel or not on board. And any one of the users that subscribe to Compass on board a vessel can all share information within it as well. I think that probably covers most of my initial overview. I'll probably step into a screen share now, and hopefully you'll all see the screen share okay, and I can start stepping through the elements within Compass in a bit more detail. So if I just share my screen now, the first place that we land on when we come into Compass is the dashboard. So this is the user dashboard. It's going to be unique for every single vessel. So every time a particular vessel logs in, their view of this dashboard will be customized and unique to their particular arrangement. So a quick overview of the dashboard. So left-hand side, we've got vessel name and the subscriptions that dsnm as a whole manage for that vessel. It could be a series of digital publications, services, physical product. They're all listed on the left, and as a quick reference to their expiry dates. So you can again at a glance see if there's anything coming around for action to be renewed, for instance. Equally, Compass ties in with your service as dsnm providers as a yacht manager. So they'll be also kind of liaising with you regarding these subscription services and their subsequent renewals. Bottom of this tab, you'll see again, contact information. This is specific to your point of contact at dsnm, so your dedicated yacht manager. So a quick reference to their contact information. Moving on to the right, we've got a weather tab. So essentially this weather tab is taking the vessel's location using AIS, and it's creating a 24-hour weather kind of summary for that location. So if you're in port somewhere, this again at a glance just gives you a quick overview, wind speed, wind gusts, highs and lows for the location that you're currently based in. Equally similar to the weather tile, we've got a tides tile which is doing a similar thing. It's taking the nearest tidal station to your AIS location and giving you again just a 24-hour glimpse into the tidal information for that particular location. The last interactive tile on the right hand side is the planning tile, and this is where you can see some recent routes. So you can see I've got a selection of recent routes that are available to open straight from the dashboard. Or equally, I can go straight into the planning section, which we'll dive into in a bit more detail in a moment. As we move down on the dashboard, we've got the actionable items. So these are items that each vessel, again, unique to each vessel, will have, it will relay information regarding their particular outfit. So any corrections, if a vessel has paper charts, for instance, it will identify on a weekly basis any new paper chart corrections that are applicable to your active outfit, so your onboard charts, essentially. Equally, any digital corrections that are supplied through Compass, they're highlighted here. Any new additions and expiring items. So if you have an old edition publication that's on board, that'll be highlighted here and will be displayed in a list, which I'll click on now, so you can have sight of that. So you'll see here that this particular outfit has a number of outstanding items, and here you can see the new additions that are pending for those. And again, in conjunction with the service that dsnm provide as a management service, the process with the fleet manager will be involved in the kind of the supply of these to you on board wherever you may be. As we move a bit further down, so at the bottom of the dashboard, we've got other subscriptions. And again, what this is covering, tailored to each particular outfit, each particular vessel and what they subscribe to. This will display additional subscriptions. So whether you have digital ebooks through Compass, you utilize the e-learning tool, e-logbooks, or the Regs for Yachts product, they're all listed at the bottom here. And again, they'll link you into their respective applications. So again, like I said, very customized and just pertinent for your particular onboard setup. Hopefully that gives, like I say, a brief overview of the dashboard. On the left-hand side, we have what's called the nav bar. This allows navigation throughout Compass beyond the point of the dashboard, and that remains static, so you can always move between the different areas. So moving forwards, we will step through into the holdings page. So the first one at the top on the left-hand side. I'll give a quick overview of holdings. It's going to be fairly self-explanatory, but essentially holdings is indication of everything that you hold on board as far as we're concerned. So navigational products, again, that could be anything from paper charts, digital licenses, flags, equipment, tender cards. We manage the entire lot. So this is where that kind of information is held, and anything that's got a geographical reference will be displayed on the map itself, on the chart. So if I select on the left hand side, you can see I've got a chart holding type selected. This particular outfit I'm using has got paper charts. I can click on the Westmed folio, and immediately you'll see the outline and the list of charts that are held in that particular folio, and that typically represents a physical folio that's held on board. At a glance, you can see, using our spatial traffic light system, you can see information that is more pertinent. So green is good, it's good to go, it's the current edition, it's up to date, there's no corrections outstanding. That chart can be used in this particular case, and like I say, it's the same for every other product. I'll show through those in a second briefly, but fundamentally it's the same. Orange will represent actionable actions that need to be taken on that chart to bring it, in this case, up to date. So if we click on this particular chart down here near the Straits of Gibraltar, you can see there's 2 corrections to do. Again, you can either apply the corrections through here, but also there'll be a way to apply the corrections through the corrections tab on the left hand side as well. So if we just click on that chart, you'll see an overview of those charts and the outstanding corrections for that particular chart, which you can click and apply accordingly. In addition to the active charts on board, if you have any asleep charts, so if you have charts that are not being used, not in your current area of operation, we can mark them as asleep, and they'll be the corrections won't be flagged, and the new additions won't necessarily be supplied so actively. But if you do need to bring these charts back to life, we can do that quite quickly. And then finally, we have the ashore section, which is for charts that are way outside of your current cruising area. So in this case, Mediterranean season underway. This outfit's chart, Caribbean charts are ashore, and that typically means they've been sent back to us for us to store throughout the summer period, and subsequently replace and bring up to date on the return for the vessel when they return to the vessel. As I mentioned, this covers other publications as well. So if I use this holding type selector at the top here, I can select through the product types. So in this case, publications, I can click on UK publications. And as you can see, you've got geographical representation of the sailing directions in this case that this vessel holds. And again, similar concept, green, amber, or red. In this case, red, as you can see from the table here, it reflects or represents an old edition publication. So you may have noticed in the original list of outstanding publications that we looked at from the dashboard, NP48 would have been listed and then would be subsequently in the process to supply. I think that's probably enough on holdings. I think, like I say, it's quite self-explanatory. And what we've really aimed at is just trying to keep this view as simple as possible. There's a lot of items that vessels hold on board. We've tried to condense this down and keep it as quick and easy to reference as possible. Moving down the list on the left-hand side, we've got corrections. So as I mentioned, the corrections and the items that you hold on board that have corrections outstanding can be seen from the dashboard with that quick action tile. It can be seen within holdings, so that kind of entire representation of your folio or folios. But equally, within the corrections tab is where the weekly corrections are delivered to. So on a weekly basis, every Thursday, corrections are imported into Compass, and they become available specific to your outfit for you to then collect, print, and apply. So if I go back to week 9, we can see for our active folio, we've got five outstanding corrections, which once we've taking the charts out, we can then subsequently print and apply those corrections to bring that folio up to date. So I can go through, I can apply all those corrections, and as you can see, they're no longer appearing as orange items on the map or on the chart. Again, other correction types, if you've got paper publications, it might be that you have sailing directions. Again, we deliver the corrections through Compass, for sailing directions through Compass, and we also deliver some digital corrections. So if you have TX97, for instance, and your transverse device, your ECDIS or ECS doesn't have a gateway or an internet connection, we can deliver weekly or monthly, quarterly, TX97 corrections through Compass specifically. Again, hopefully that gives, I think, a quick overview of corrections. Those are kind of, like I say, the two kind of, I guess, original elements of Compass that were there from the beginning and have kind of supported it moving forwards. We still have so many vessels that use paper charts, so it's still a very, very core element of what Compass provides. Moving on to the catalogue. Catalogue, again, I think is quite self-explanatory. This is just a list, a library, for instance, of all of the publications and charts, etc., that we can supply, all of the products we can supply. So they can be searched for in here. So if you were going to search for a flag, for instance, you could go into here and you could search for a particular flag by text. So if we looked at Malta, for instance, and we looked under product type equipment, and we looked under flags, you should see the flags that we have available as Maltese flags. And again, you can search this entire library, this catalogue, you can select items. And what you can do from once you select items is you can actually send them to your basket and request them from your fleet manager. I'll demonstrate that with a paper chart example. So if I were to draw a very quick route and search by route, so I'm going to select the route option here. I'm going to select UK paper charts. I'm going to set my corridor a little wider to 50 nautical miles and click search. You'll see that will bring back a list of paper charts that exist outside of your current holdings but are available in the catalogue. And as you can see, they're represented here on the map and also in the table down here on the right-hand side. Like I mentioned, you can select items from here. You can add them to basket. And then from the basket, you can request them to be delivered to you from your fleet manager. Fleet manager will be in contact to arrange the respective delivery. But again, a quick way of ascertaining any additional items you may need, licenses or charts you may need for a planned destination, a planned passage, and again a quick route for alerting your fleet manager and saying, look, last minute plans, we're heading to this location, please can you send us these charts. So that's primarily what the catalog's for, just that kind of wider search. Other than that, I think hopefully it's relatively self-explanatory. I don't know if you have any questions at this point, or whether we march forwards. Cool. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to step forwards. I'm going to skip over planning. We'll come back to that one. I'm just going to drop into weather very quickly, again, simply because I can give a bit more of an overview of our weather layer, what it includes, and then when I move back into planning, kind of give a slightly lighter connection between weather and the planning features within Compass. So weather is we've essentially moved to a new weather supplier in the last kind of 18 months to enable us to push Compass and the weather features within Compass forwards a little bit further. So you can see as soon as I hop into the weather tile or the weather tab, you can see the weather picker centralizes on the vessel's location. So current location you can see being depicted here by this green icon on the map. And what this will initially give us is, because I've got wind selected, it will give us an overview of wind direction, wind speeds, gusts, and in addition to that, the other directional information that's pertinent for a vessel when they're underway, swell and wave information. So that's all just depicted on the chart here itself. At the bottom of the table here, you'll see a graph representing the next 7 days of weather for a location. Like I say, it's currently pointed on the vessel's moving location, but if we selected any other point, it would reflect and update to reflect the weather for that location. You can, on the right-hand side, toggle between our forecast options, so ECMWF or GFS. ECMWF long gives a slightly longer but lower frequency forecast into the future. And what you can also do between each of those models is you can select the variables within. So you can see I can toggle over to air temperature, for instance. That will update the map image, the information here shown for that particular location, and the information in the table can be adjusted using this drop down. What we have at the bottom here is a slider as well. So through that kind of 7-day weather forecast, you can slide through the days, and that will ultimately update the chart behind. So you can see there I've just slid forward to the 1st of March, and you will see the respective information update accordingly. So the direction of the weather, air temperature, and the tile behind all updates simultaneously. From this information, so like I say, you can toggle through all of the variables depending on which one you need to be viewing at a particular time. What we also include in here is once you've settled on a location and you want to create a forecast for that, you can use the Get Forecast Summary option on the left-hand side. And what that's going to do is, based on that kind of fixed 7-day period, it's going to give you a textual overview of that, of the conditions for that area. So if you're going into an anchorage, for instance, a planned anchorage, you can start to get an idea of weather and start summarizing the weather information ahead of time. In addition to the textual summary, again, this is an automatically generated, so this is using an AI tool to generate that information into a short summary. We've also got the ability to extract weather reports from Compass, from the weather section within Compass, using this option on the right hand side here, this Create Weather Report option. So I can click on Create Weather Report. That'll bring up this modal that you can see in front of you now. And what this allows you to do is really customize that forecast report for your particular needs. So again, based on the location that I've previously clicked on, I can adjust the time period. So in this case, if I want to go actually up until, let's go from today up until Saturday, I'll apply those timeframes, and then I can choose what elements I want to include within this weather report. So I'll keep my AI synopsis on. I have a map overview. So let me just move it to a location here. Somewhere interesting, right? Move it to there. So like I said, we can go in, set the date period. I'm going to select AI synopsis, map overview, and I'm going to select wind, waves, and air temperature. Create weather report. What this is going to do, it's going to use those selections and the data behind to compile a PDF report. So you'll see that just generated on the right-hand side now. Now, if I open that up, you'll see it gives me a customized report. So map to give me a bit of idea of that location. I've got long and lat on the top left-hand side, when it was created and how long it's been created for. Vessel logo at the top, so a really customized outline for this report. And then a textual synopsis for the variables selected. So like we only selected a small handful of variables, those have been passed into that synopsis generator and have created us a nice short, succinct synopsis for that. For those that want to read that sort of information as opposed to reading off a graph. At the bottom on the second page, we've got the graphs, the respective graphs for the variables selected. So again, 2 formats of information. And what we're quite often seeing with these weather reports, they're being shared with guests on board, with crew, with departments on board. And again, it gives them all a bit of an oversight of information and you know, hopefully aids their job on board. And like I say, it can be shared either downloaded via PDF, attached to an email and shared internally, or it can be printed and passed around as a printed copy. So I think that gives hopefully a bit of an overview of the weather information, so that the core kind of weather context that we have within Compass here. It's a global weather forecast. So again, wherever you zoom out to, you'll see there's a weather option, and you can go in and interrogate any particular location to get the weather information for that particular point. I think unless there's any questions, I can move on to.
It was just a question that we've answered, but maybe better for the wider audience regarding the weather data system that is used to generate the information.
Yeah, so we use a company called Met Ocean Solutions. They work with the New Zealand Met Office. They're quite a well-established organisation, and they help us and provide the weather data for us. Within Compass, we get regular updates. It's every hour we're getting a new update of weather. So you can log in every hour and you can see the latest portion of information. And like I mentioned before, we've got ECMWF and GFS as our primary weather forecast models. ECMWF is the higher resolution offering out of the two, but 2 sources for you to compare and contrast against. Hopefully that kind of
perfect
covers over that point a little bit further. So the next section that I'm going to cover is planning. And again, going back to what we were saying at the beginning in that introduction, planning and weather have seen quite a lot of change recently, and that we're really trying to promote planning, especially because of the direction of where the industry is heading and kind of what the needs and demands are of kind of softwares on board. You know, we've given a really kind of renewed focus on our planning tool. To kind of continue to offer what our crews are ultimately asking for, and our crew input is ultimately what's helping direct the direction of Compass, or helping aim at the direction of Compass is heading towards. So the planning section is it does what it says it is. It's a planning tool, so it gives a series of information layers and the ability for crews to collate information from different sources into this one place, and to give a bit of a well-rounded kind of almost awareness tool beyond maybe what they'd get from an ECDIS alone or a weather service alone. We bring all these pieces of information into one place so they can all be reviewed simultaneously. Now, there's not any one particular route for which planning should be used or could be used. You can either start creating those really high-level routes within Compass if you wanted to create kind of a distance measurement, for instance. Or if you wanted to import the route from another location, an ECDIS, for instance, you can do that as well. So whether you're using it for that high level initial planning, or you're using it for a route that's already established and you want to use the weather functionality, that's an alternative avenue for which Compass planning can be used. It's really flexible, and there's no, like I say, firm route and order in which it should be used. So you'll see I've clicked into the planning tab, and what that initially brings up for me is the route manager modal. So this is kind of like, what are you here to do? So you'll see at the top left-hand side, we've got the option to import a route. So most ECDIS units, you can export in an RTZ or an RT3 format, a route file. You can import that into Compass, transfer via USB, and that'll bring your route as it was in the ECDIS into Compass. Alternatively, we can create a new route. So you'll see the little green icon at the top here, and that will just give me a draw function and allow me to start plotting waypoints within Compass. And then at the bottom, you'll see we have a couple of tables, saved routes. So these are routes that have either originated in Compass or previously been imported and subsequently saved in Compass. On the right-hand side, we've got our passage plans, again, which I'll go into in a bit more detail in a moment. And then the top right-hand side here, we've got our configure route defaults. So you'll be prompted, if you haven't used this before, to configure your route defaults. And that's setting things like average speeds, turning circles, cross-track information, and all of that information is contained within the route files that you may eventually export from Compass, but they're also portrayed on the passage plan. So again, if the ultimate passage plan document, which we'll get to at the end of this planning section, is exported, it carries that information within it. So what I can do is, if I just head over to the chart again, you can minimize this so you've got a really clear open view of the chart if you need to. What we can do is we can either start drawing a route. So you'll see I've got the draw function here. That's going to allow me to start plotting routes and finishing a route. And from there, I can also go in and start adjusting waypoints. Equally, if I clear that route, what we can do is we can use the route manager to open a saved route. So if I open this saved route here, you should see that appear on the chart in front of us. So again, this is a saved route from the Compass route repository that I've previously put together. You can see route names, departure time information, arrival time, distance. So again, distance measurement tool, very quick and easy to identify what that particular route may do. If I need to make any adjustments to that route, I can use the edit tool on the left-hand side to make an adjustment, and you'll see the respective distance will update accordingly. I can go in and I'll delete that waypoint for now. Now, beyond the route itself and the import of the route, you can see how we depict route information. So as we zoom in here, you can see the starting point. We've got a name for the route, so you can see for that particular waypoint, we've got a Palmer exit name, so that's depicted on the chart as well. And we've also got information about the leg, concerning the leg, fixed to the leg as well, so a bearing and the distance between legs. And again, all of this information is reflected within the table on the bottom right-hand side here as well. You can see we are able to adjust waypoint names, so we can add pertinent information. In this case, Bonifacio TSS entry, Bonifacio TSS exit. Now, on the grey map, obviously that doesn't make a huge amount of sense, but if we toggle on one of the layers, so in this case, I'll toggle on the nautical chart layer, so one of our chart layers, you'll be able to see that obviously that reflects the TSS that heads between Corsica and Sardinia. So I've been able to list information within those two waypoints, add a few notes, and again, just customize that information that's stored within that route file, and subsequently, like you say, exported. So as mentioned, waypoint information in the table, waypoint information on the map. You can see both of them respectively. Within here as well, we can also go through and we can choose to edit. So we can edit a waypoint from the table. This brings up the edit modal here. This is where speeds can be changed for that particular leg, that particular waypoint. Or equally, we can access that by clicking a point on the route itself and using the edit option. What we can do as well, like I mentioned, is we can toggle between a series of chart layers. So we've got the nautical chart selected at the moment. This is constructed using unofficial chart data. So this is CMAP Professional Plus chart data. And this is a global coverage. And again, this is included within Compass. So you can go to any particular location and it will bring up the information, the chart data for that particular location. So if I go to the end of this route, again, you'll see that information coming into view. We have a satellite map. We have a streets map, which is just a standard kind of labeled map. And we also have a nav.enc layer, which gives a representation of the same chart data. For instance, if you're an ECDIS primary vessel, that you would see on your ECDIS. So same colors, same icons available again within here. Again, this is a global coverage. It's updated once a week. And again, really for that kind of high level analysis, it starts to give you access to that information wherever you are on a multitude of devices. So again, where this sort of information was historically limited to an ECDIS or maybe a planning station installed on the bridge, this can be accessed from anywhere and by multiple individuals, multiple users. So a couple of chart layers there that, like I say, assist with the overview, the analysis. and like I say, hopefully give crew the ability to see that level of information. On the right-hand side, we have a series of other layers. So if I just toggle back to the grey map for a moment, we have a couple of other layers that appear on the right-hand side here. So we've got a nav area warning layer at the top here. So again, that allows us to toggle on the nav area warnings that are active in an area. So you can see if I toggle on and select this particular area, you can see the nav area warnings that are in force, main area and coastal warnings. And you can select each of these to see them in more detail. So here we go. We can see this particular nav area warning. And we can subsequently copy and paste that should we need to, and print it. Moving down the right-hand side, we have a series of other layers. So we have a grouping of MARPOL layers. So any PSSA areas, particularly sensitive sea areas, you can select and you can see where they extend to. So again, you can see the couple of PSSA areas in the Mediterranean. We have a coastal layer option. So this is where crew can go in and see the respective territorial limits for coastal MARPOL warnings, from which you can go in and you can interrogate a little bit more information. So I can click on this, the 0 to 3 nautical mile area here around Corsica, and I can click on the additional information, and it's going to give me a high-level overview of what is allowed and what isn't allowed within that particular part of the Mediterranean. Special areas, so again, global depiction of special areas, and also ECA areas, so any emission control areas that are currently in force will also be depicted on Compass. Moving forwards on the right-hand side, again, we've got a couple of other layers. We've got an IMRE layer, which I'll show in a second, but we've also got a territorial water layer, which again, in a similar way to the others, it shows the extent of the territorial waters of a particular nation. So again, you can see whether you're in or whether you're outside of particular territorial waters for any part of a vessel's passage. Moving into the IMRE Explore, so there's a particular kind of use case of this. So Explore with IMRE have developed their particular cruising guides into like a geo-referenced series of points. So their popular cruising guides are now accessible within Compass. So you can see as I zoom in after I've turned the layer on, we've got a series of points that appear on the chart, and we can zoom in and we can see for our particular location down here, there's a couple of points that exist in the IMRE suite of publications. So if I click on one of these points, you'll see it will come up with the information for that point. And you can see this information taken from the Italian Waters Pilot. It gives us an idea of information regarding that particular anchorage. We've got a small chartlet that's included within that particular IMRE snippet, and also an image that can all be extracted. You can print this. So if you wanted to, for instance, append this to your passage plan, you could pull all this information out for later reference. What's worth mentioning here as well is if we utilize our satellite map when using the planning section, we can use a right click to go down and view a particular location in a slightly different from a slightly different perspective. So again, what's quite interesting with here, we've got a point that shows a picture within this point of this island, and again, you can go down and you can start to see, in conjunction with your particular route, the 3D kind of effects of that particular part of the passage. So again, we can work our way all the way around here, and we can see kind of our approach. So from a bridge team kind of situational awareness, kind of a debrief or a briefing ahead of the passage, you can start to get an idea of what that may look like if you're going into a new area. So again, just another added level of information to hopefully assist with that kind of planning process as a whole. So I'll toggle that layer off, and I'll toggle back to the grey map for now, and we'll go back to a bird's eye view perspective, or 2D perspective. So again, still with the route loaded, what we can head on to now is the weather section. So once you've got a route in here and you've made your necessary navigational amendments to that route, or you've imported a route that's been already checked on the NECDIS, you can then toggle on the weather section within Compass. So if I toggle on the weather layer, we'll see a weather layer similar to what we were seeing in the weather section will appear, and that will give us the ability to start interrogating weather for that perspective route within Compass. So again, fairly similar, consistent kind of layout of the table at the bottom here. So you'll see we've got the graph. The graph is obviously reflecting your particular departure date and the expected weather along that route based on speeds, etc. So that's reflected in the bottom right-hand side of this table. And then similar to the weather tab, we've got a weather report, which again is using an AI kind of tool to generate that synopsis based on that weather information. So it can give you an overview of the conditions that you're expecting to see for that particular route. Again, similar to how I displayed in the weather section, you can toggle through the various variables here. So if there's one particular one that you want to dial in on and you want to visually see on the chart itself, you can. And alternatively, you can toggle through the variables on the bottom right-hand side here to see if there's any significant weather areas of weather that you need to really pay attention to. Again, we've got the slider here, which allows you to slide the vessel through that particular route. And if I drop it on a particular location, you'll see expected wave directions, swell direction, wind gust directions display, and also the chart behind updates to reflect that particular point and point in time and point along the route. As an added kind of level of information within the planning section, we've got our route warnings. So you will see they're available on the right-hand side here beneath the weather tab. I can toggle these on using this icon here, and that's going to bring up for us any route warnings that are applicable to your route and defined by your parameter settings on the right-hand side here. So these are little sliders here. You can quite easily adjust your parameters to identify points along that route that, again, just need that extra level of attention. So you can see I've set wave height, for instance. Anything over 0.6 meters is going to come up as a yellow warning. Anything above 3.6 meters would come up as a red warning. But conveniently, we can see that actually this bit of this bit of leg is actually looking quite smooth for the particular departure time. If I go back into the route stage, I can nudge this on a little bit further, so I can actually set the departure time, let's say tomorrow. If I set it as the 28th and click apply, that's going to update all of the information in the background. If we go back into weather, again, all of that information will be updated accordingly. So again, if there's any kind of points of weather that are going to be exceeding your parameters, that will be highlighted here within Compass. What I can do actually just demonstrate, I can probably bring this down. What do we have here? Of 19 knots of wind speed. So if I drop that down to 18, you'll see that point there is highlighted in red. So again, just to kind of draw slightly more attention to that particular point based on your set parameters. Any questions whilst we're at this point?
Yeah, there are a few, and probably good to answer live just for the wider group online. Yeah, just a question about cross-track distance, which I think is part of the route planning defaults. Can that be displayed on the chart or the planning tool?
At the moment, no. However, we have had a number of requests asking whether we could depict cross-track. So what we've tried to do up until this point is not to blur too much the lines between what Compass is doing for you and what an ECDIS and a route check within an ECDIS would do. We can set cross tracks within here, and they'll be passed through into the ECDIS. So when you load a route into an ECDIS, it will display the actual cross track corridor. But we haven't yet got to a point where we're displaying the cross tracks within Compass. However, that said, there's been plenty of requests for it, and I think it's something that will probably make its way onto our kind of near-term work list, I suspect.
Perfect. Just another one with regards to catalogue, really. With the limited UKHO charts for Spain, are there any other options for Spanish issued charts? But I suppose that's also relevant to other areas of the world in terms of catalogue.
Yes, we support. So we can store other hydrographic offices or the charts for other hydrographic offices within Compass. We stored the NOAA charts, for instance, up until the point that they're being slowly eroded. I think they're kind of heading out the door later this year. Although we don't actively store other hydrographic office charts within Compass, what we can do, and in conjunction with your yacht manager, if there is an area that you're heading to and you want to explore the other paper chart options outside of the BA paper charts, the UKHO paper charts, our team of yacht managers have quite extensive knowledge in the availability of coverage. So we'd quite often look at an area for you. If you said, right, this is the area or this is the route you're heading on, they can go through and select and supply paper charts from a local authority according to your needs. So although Compass specifically doesn't, we as a company can, and once they are supplied, we do store the specific charts within Compass. So if you have a series of charts that we haven't yet supplied to a vessel in the past, they'll be stored in Compass, so you'll still see them in your respective holdings. So you'll have reference to them in your holdings. Hopefully that answers that question.
Perfect. I suppose we'll move on shortly with regards to import and export and what information is pulled from that. So there's a question with regards to that, but just a simple question around UTC and LT. Can we change, or can one change using the software, the differences between UTC and LT?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. At the moment, we're keeping everything. We've kept everything up to date in UTC. But again, similar to the XTD question, there has been some good demand, and rightly so, for a local time toggle. So it's something that we have on our very, very near horizon, actually. The ability to toggle probably manually between local time and UTC, so you can apply an offset to the times that are displayed within Compass. We're gathering a bit of feedback on that at the moment, so we might probably reach out to you directly if we can collect your information at the end of the webinar. So if there's any questions about specifics other than just a simple offset, we may fire them in your direction. But yeah, again, a great question, and it's something that we will be adding in, so just to make that kind of that information just a little quicker, a little clearer to see for information within Compass. You will see, as we get to the passage plan document at the end, there is the ability to apply a local time offset for your departure point and your arrival point. But I think the question that you're asking is particularly for the times shown within Compass itself. So yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
One more, yeah, just before we move on to the next. Could you use the weather option for the actual weather route? For example, give a max wave height direction to give the best route or date or time to depart. So just in terms of the route warnings and the information that we have on there.
Yeah, so it won't automatically create a route for you based on parameters, but what you can do quite quickly is you can make those adjustments, like I did a moment ago, to either the route itself. So I can go into here and I can make kind of adjustments to the route, which will then subsequently update the parameters behind and react almost immediately to the parameters that you've set. So we've made a tool that's quite quick to adjust. So any adjustments that you may think you need to make, you can make on the fly. That's to obviously the route itself, but equally to the route departure time. So again, you can just drop back into the route section here, and you can adjust this departure time by minutes, hours, days, to see how that reflects in the warnings that are showing within Compass. So yeah, although we don't have that kind of auto routing kind of please avoid waves of this height or wind speeds of this severity, we have made quite a quick tool for referencing and making those adjustments and visually seeing how those adjustments are reflected within the weather section on planning. But that's not to say that at some point in the future we may end up with a more of a automated routing tool, but just not quite yet.
Perfect.
Are we doing any other questions to cover off whilst we're at this pause?
No, I think we'll move on to the next part. There's a few more we'll tidy up at the end, I think.
Fantastic. So yeah, so moving on through the planning section, I think I've given the layers quite a thorough overview, hopefully, and the information that is obtainable within the table and the summary on the right hand side. What we also have, in a similar way to the single point forecast we were creating, we have the ability to create a route weather report. So again, this is specific to the route that you've created within Compass. I can click on this route weather report. I can select the variables that I want to include. So again, we'll include the synopsis, the map, wind, waves, we'll include visibility, and we'll include swell. And I can create a weather report for that particular route as well. So it goes off, it collates all that information into an exportable report. And you'll see here all the adjustments that I made, route depiction, summary of the selected variables, and then a graphical representation of those variables as well. Again, we've tried to keep this quite simple in some respects. This can again be downloaded, shared with the team on board, printed, stored on the bridge whilst the passage is underway. And equally, it can be referenced and updated along that passage. So kind of, every day you could go in and generate the remaining weather report for the remainder of that route, with obviously the latest weather forecast data once it's updated within Compass. So that kind of covers off, I think, the planning weather context. Moving through here, we've got a reference to tidal information. This is not ATT data, but it's a global tidal source of information. And again, it gives you a representation of the highs and lows and tidal graph for a particular starting point. In this case, you can see the tidal station, Palma de Mallorca, and also the end destination. So I can toggle between the arrival and the departure point tidal information here. Again, quick reference. Ultimately, you should be using the ATT data. So if that's alongside on the same PC, you can reference that when it actually gets to the point of collating the tidal information and importing it into the final passage plan. Moving to the last section within the planning section, before we go into the actual passage plan itself, we've got the ability to toggle on products. So let me just go back into here and toggle off the weather warnings and head back into products. So what we can do within the product section is this is essentially going to look against both the catalog and your holdings and identify the products required for that route. So on the left-hand side here, I have an option to select products to search. I can set a corridor. I'm going to leave it at 0 for now, but that's just obviously the corridor either side of that route that you're going to search through. And in this case, I'm going to select paper charts and sailing directions. Now you can go through and select any of these series of products. These are the primary passage planning products that you'd be expected to use. So kind of E&C charting, paper charting, whichever is your primary. And then whether you're using digital sailing directions or paper sailing directions or digital lights, tides, and radio signals, you can select according to your particular setup on board and search against those items. So you'll see that has returned to me a series of products. Again, using the traffic light system, we can identify what's good. Green, i.e. it's on board, it's up to date. What's orange, it's on board, but it has some outstanding corrections. Or red is generally going to identify it not being owned. So that could be an old edition or chart coverage that you simply do not have on board. We can quite quickly tidy up that view a little bit. So it's going to give us everything that route intersects with, but I can quite quickly go through and I'm going to deselect the big overview cells and I'm going to go in and then using the map control, I'm just going to deselect some of the other charts I know we're not going to need for that. So 1702, I can remove that from that list. So again, quite a quick way of putting together that information. Route still in view behind, chart numbers, and actually if you click on each of them, you'll be able to see which folio it's held on board. So you can quite quickly reference them. In this case, the paper charts, pull them out of their respective folios so they're ready for the upcoming passage. Like I said, any charts that you need to correct, you can go in and you can select and apply the respective correction as well to those charts, just to bring them up to date. We can see there's one here, 166, that isn't available. So again, depending on how near the passage you're actually doing this process, you may have time to add that to your basket. So you'll see that appear in the basket up here, and reach out, send that to your respective fleet manager so they can supply up that remaining chart or outstanding item to you. Again, that could be digital items as well. So licenses that can obviously be licensed immediately. Sailing directions in a similar way, an outline of their coverage, and again, a status represented by the color of the spatial. So you can see here, we've got MP46 and MP45 for this particular passage. I can click on them and I can apply and print the corrections, or print and apply the corrections, should I say, for that particular sailing direction to bring it up to date. So it's ready for the passage. So once you've gone through that process, I've kind of drifted on quite for quite a while, kind of going through that, but you can imagine actually from the import to actually visualizing the weather to selecting the products can actually take only a matter of moments. Is quite quick once you've done it a couple of times. What this leads us into is the final stage, which is the creation of the passage plan. So what we're leading into here is that kind of well-rounded passage plan document. So we have a templated document within Compass that brings all this information together, again, in a shareable report. So I've got this modal that comes up once I click the create passage plan option on the right-hand side here. I can select time zones, like I mentioned before, so we can apply an offset for the departure point and the arrival point, and we can also select which segments we want to include within this passage plan. So again, very customizable. You can make it as long or short as you want. Some people may just want a summary and the route table. whereas others may want navigator information, checklists, etc., and weather synopsis. So once you've selected the options that you want from within here, you can hit the create passage plan option, and what it will go and do, it will go and compile all that information together, and it will bring it into one final report, which should appear any second. So you'll see here our passage plan report. And again, this has been developed and improved over time, again, using crew input. You know, we have a really kind of good group of guys and girls that work on board the vessels that we work with, and they're really happy to kind of contribute and make suggestions, which we're really happy to receive to kind of make this a better tool for all those that are using it. So again, you can see the template that we're currently using within Compass that includes vessel logo, so it's customized for any particular vessel, vessel information, editable fields, so you can add on a number of crew, passengers, etc., fuel, any notes you can type in here, so you can add in test notes into here. It can be signed off, so we can have the master sign this particular document off. And equally, the navigation officer, if they're not the same person, they can each sign this off. Add in any additional information, so any title information, like I said, be typically taken from the Admiralty ATT application. And then moving on down, we've got an image of the route, or a quick kind of overlay of the route. Information concerning the route table. So like we saw on the original route, I'd had a waypoint name Palmer exit, that's depicted in here, along with all of the other information that's set within route defaults, and equally any notes that I've applied to those waypoints as well. So again, an extract of all that information into quite a clean kind of summary report, without having to go through and type it out manually. Products, so you can see the products that we selected are available on here. That one that wasn't currently on board is shown here. E&Ps, any T's and P's are outstanding for the particular charts, any nav error warnings for the route. So if you intersect with any nav error warnings, or if there are any general warnings for the area, they'll be highlighted in here. Again, that was a section of this passage plan that I chose to include. And then as we move down, we have a checklist. So a pre-departure planning checklist. And at the bottom, we have a summary for that route. So the weather summary. So again, this extends to 14 pages, but you could easily create a passage plan with 1 or 2 segments at maybe 3 or 4 pages long. It's very customizable based on what information you need to carry out of Compass. And again, once you've finished filling in the information within here and signed it off, when you go to close, you'll have an option to email this. So again, you can email this to other members of crew on board, or any members of shore crew, persons ashore that are interested in that information, DPAs, for instance, or you can just save that information to be stored within Compass. So you'll see once we've saved it, we've got that saved passage plan here that could be later recalled, or just serve as a reference point into the future. Hopefully that, like I say, gives a bit of an overview of planning. That's like I say, that's the area within Compass that has seen quite a lot of our focus recently. And yeah, like I said, if you're an existing user, it's there for you to use to see how it works for you on board, and to feedback if there's any questions or queries that you have, or recommended feedback for changes. Hopefully that's covered that off. I don't know if there's any questions at this point.
Yeah, just a couple to just to tie off at the end here. Just a question around route and exporting of route.
Yeah.
See that there's a button there on the bottom left in terms of that, but a question about all the additional information. Would that be retained when importing onto an ECDIS, for instance, the speed info, names, notes, that kind of stuff?
Yes, the notes sometimes not, depends whether an ECDIS has a notes field, or the particular ECDIS that you're using has a notes field, but certainly all of the waypoint names, they'll all be exported, depending on which ECDIS you're using. Most common route for export will be RTZ. That's kind of the industry standard. So there's a good chance that your ECDIS will import that particular format. You'll see we have a few other series of formats here for various other systems, not necessarily ECDIS units, but RTZ is the most common one. And yeah, like you asked, essentially all of the information that you've laid out in the table here, so speeds, waypoint naming, XTDs, will all be passed by that route file into the ECDIS.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other ones?
Just one last question
Yeah.
here. Just a question about providing more information about the AI weather report.
Yeah. So the AI weather report is it's using a essentially ChatGPT to provide a concise summary of the weather information that you've selected. So if you're looking at a 7-day forecast for a particular location, it's going to take all of that point data for that location and feed it into the AI generator and generate a 250, 300 word synopsis for that particular point. Again, that's going to vary depending on which model and which variables you select. But yeah, it's ultimately kind of feeding all of that information, all of those data points, whether it be for a particular location or for a route, into that tool to generate a specific synopsis that is unique at that particular moment in time for your route, for the weather that's expected for your upcoming route.
Just a final question that's popped in regarding the possibilities of ADP and EMP integration into Compass and where we currently sort of stand with that.
Yeah, it's great question. So currently ADP and EMP are installed applications. So there's a limitation to how other applications, in particular web-based applications, can interact with their data and pull their data into Compass. We work very closely with the UKHO. And they're well renowned for the quality of the data that they provide. ADP and EMP is obviously just two of them. And we have had good conversations with them about the accessibility of their data. And we would hope at some point in the future, they'll start opening up those data sources to potential APIs and other avenues, just to expand the availability of that data. We work with such a wide range of vessels, and some have kind of good open bridge setups that have access to PCs that are installed. Some smaller setups, they want that flexibility. So trying to kind of open up, which is what we've ultimately done with Compass, trying to open up the accessibility of that data is hopefully what we achieve at some point in the future. Ultimately, that direction is dictated by the UKHO, whose data is proprietary data it is. But like I say, we have good conversations with them, and I know that there is kind of change on the horizon regarding some of their applications. But it's a conversation that we'll continue to have, and as soon as we do kind of see that potential option arriving in the future, we'll be sure to let everyone know about it, and certainly introduce it into Compass as soon as it potentially does become available. It's a good question.
Perfect. No more questions. We'll be going for near on an hour now, so thank you very much, everybody, for your time. We will obviously be looking to organise future webinars, hopefully to focus on individual areas within the Compass software and highlight some of the new features when they're released. So keep an eye out, and we will be in touch. So just a quick reminder, if you are a dsnm subscriber, just a reminder to book a personal demo by reaching out to your yacht manager or by sending an email to info@dsnmltd.com, or by filling out the demo form on our website if you are not yet a client of ours. So finally, thank you very much, everyone. And if there's no further questions, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.